Okay, so now we've covered the three concepts that make up the rhetorical triangle: author, audience, and purpose. Together, they give us the context that surrounds the text, or the macrocosm, the big picture. Now we're going to move on to the other set of three rhetorical tools, the second set, uh, and these will give us the microcosm, or the, the small picture. These are called the rhetorical appeals. So we've got the rhetorical triangle on one hand and the rhetorical appeals on the other. The rhetorical appeals are three strategies used in the text itself, because remember, the rhetorical triangle surrounds the text. Um, and we can find evidence of the author, uh, for example, in the text. So if we go back to Hitchcock, we can find uh, evidence that it's a Hitchcock film just based on what's in the film. Different stylistic techniques and kind of calling cards and that kind of thing. But for the most part, the rhetorical triangle concepts exist outside of the text. And we can find evidence of them in the text, but they exist outside of it. The rhetorical appeals, on the other hand, are strategies, methods for making argument that exist within the text. So to find them, we have to look very closely at the text itself. And the first is pathos, uh, also known as, or the rough translation is appeal to emotion. This is the strategy of trying to convince your audience, and remember that those rhetorical triangle concepts are always there, um, trying to convince your audience of your purpose by appealing to their emotions, as opposed to their logic, their logical side, or something else. And here are some examples of pathos appeal. The classic one here at the top, uh, babies and puppies. Because who doesn't love babies and puppies, right? There's an immediate kind of emotional reaction to whether it's a picture of babies and puppies or a written description. Because remember, we're dealing with written texts, not visual texts. Um, and again, there's a handout on in the first module that gives you some examples of how pathos appears in writing. But um, regardless of the form it takes, you get an immediate emotional reaction to the image. The same is true of, well, obviously Memorial Day just passed, so this is pretty familiar. Um, the same is true of patriotic imagery, or again, patriotic descriptions in writing. Uh, they evoke a different kind of reaction, but one that is still emotional. And our third example here, a crying child, begging for money, it seems, very sad, and again, an emotional reaction. And the strategy of pathos in rhetoric is, if you can connect your argument to this emotional content, then you can convince your reader of your argument. If you can somehow tie whatever the argument is that you're making, if you can tie it to puppies and babies, or tie it to patriotism, or tie it to the strife of the less fortunate, then you can make your argument. Your argument can almost kind of follow along and hold on to the coattails of that emotional appeal. And you can convince your audience by appealing to the many different emotions. There's uh, a lot of different ways that this manifests. Appealing to fear, appealing to anger. There are some very distasteful ways to use pathos. And there are also some ways that are not considered real argument.